Hi, good morning, everyone. We're here to go over Sprint 8 demo, the review of what has been done in this 8th work cycle. We have one more to go that starts tomorrow, but we're going to let Tom go ahead and run us through the things that were accomplished in this sprint.
Great. Yeah, so our goals for this sprint were focused sort of twofold on collections, which is support for collections, which is substantial MVP item for us, and batch processes for large scale ingest, and also for sort of like large scale moving of objects through workflow processes. And I think I have also a few other miscellaneous things to show here, but we'll try and focus on those two things, and then I'll say a little bit about what we're hoping to accomplish with the last of the sprints in this work cycle. Okay, so I'm going to start by creating a couple of demo objects. And, oh, why not some cylinders content? Oh. I don't know what's, okay, I'm just going to skip objects or skip files here. And I'll create another one or two. And then I think I'll also create us a quick couple of collections. I think my dog's about to come barreling up the stairs. He's taken to jumping over the pet fences that we have.
It's because these demos are that exciting.
They are.
To him.
Okay, and then we'll create a collection. And why not another collection? Okay. So supposing that I want to, well, I guess there are really two things that I want to demo with these objects. The first is the moving of an object through the workflow. So I can say, hello, Gnocchi. Come on. You caught me in an awkward moment. Okay, so so I can, let's say, I'll do some idiosyncratic capitalization just because I like to have some fun. So that moved this first object through the workflow to a completed state. I'll remind us that the workflow states themselves are configurable, and what sort of happens when objects move between the states is also configurable. One of those things is these notifications. So I got some info about object 1 moving through the workflow. And we can do this also with a request of changes. I'll make up some nonsense. Now I have different actions available here. And I'll go ahead and observe that these objects are now in two different statuses in the workflow view. Really the way that we still right now, really the way that we move objects from one state to another is by going to this single object page and making that process large scale from a view like this one is work that we're planning for the next sprint. Okay, so that's workflow. One ticket that we closed also is the comment only and I'm going to go ahead and like, why not be someone else? Let's be Gabriella, because that's who I was when I did this demo for Gabriella. And I'll go over to object one and say, so we have a comment only function. And if I have permissions to see the workflow process, then I'll be able to see the various comments. Okay. So now I'd like to add an object to collection one. And first of all, I want to add this object that already exists to that collection. And in fact, I'll put this because one of the tickets that we closed was to have an object be in multiple collections. So we can go ahead and add it to collection one and also to collection two. And that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and save the changes. And we can see here from the collection, from the show view for this object that it's in collection one and collection two. If I click through on collection one, I'll see problems, but we'll, oh, wild. Okay, so I want to be me again because I think that this may be an issue that we want to open a ticket for. I might not have access to collections that are not mine, but that I should have deposit access to. Okay, so, oh, interesting, Gabriella. We did actually get this object showing up here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's positive in collection one, and also I think in collection two. I think if I try and deposit from here, or sorry, if I try and deposit from here, I might hit an oh, add existing works to this collection just goes over here, huh? Oh, so that actually works pretty great. I'll go ahead and remove this object from collection one, and I'll save. And that didn't work. Okay, that's great. We should also open a ticket for that. And then last but not least, if I want to deposit a new object directly into this collection, I have a button for that. It looks like it didn't actually. I'm not sure that it took. So we can do. Yeah, that sure didn't take. But we can from here in the deposit process, add the object to the collection straight away without having to go through a multi-step process. That should work the same way, where we can sort of pick collections as part of the batch ingest process and deposit different objects to different collections. Okay. I think one other ticket that's sort of unrelated that we closed this sprint was the edit. And what did I say the name of this one should be? Oh no, it's object 2 that I said. I'm just gonna follow my comment. Oh yeah, it should be demo object 2.1. So supposing that I've seen that and I have permissions to edit, I'm able to save the metadata for this and see that it comes through as a new title. Other metadata should also be updatable, but I think that we don't have a lot in this form by default in these demo apps.
Tom, real quick, can I interrupt?
Yes.
What does that label changes required mean? Does that mean it's going through the workflow and it needs to be reviewed?
Yeah, that's a workflow state. We somewhere earlier on, we moved this to a changes required workflow state. So now the way that the default workflow is configured is when you deposit something, it goes for a review step. And then from there, I have two options. One is to, if I am a reviewer, one is I can either move it from that state to completed via the, what was that action? We'll just be accurate about this information. So demo object, this one. So I have this action approve, and that will move it to, so you see in review here, the approve will move it to the completed state.
Got it. Okay.
Whereas the request changes action will move it to changes required. And then a different set of users who can be overlapping, but a different role in this workflow can now do, so I might like upload a new file here. Oh, that's going to be too big. Sorry, we don't, it's too, the Rust programming language EPUB is too large for our server as configured. But anyway, I might upload a new file or change the name. All right, my metadata changes would probably be more substantial than this, but oh, wild. Did I mess something up? I think it might be the failed file upload that gave us trouble there. So anyway, I might edit the metadata or say add component objects and then say I'll request a re-review. And in this admin state, I have access to all of the workflow roles. So you're seeing all of these actions. But if I configured this workflow so that certain users were depositors in this project and certain users were reviewers in this project, then we would see different notifications and different actions available to the different people. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I think this one's cleaned up now, and then I'll get another little notification here saying that this one is now awaiting approval. It's kind of funny that it says it's deposited. That's sort of out of date information, I think, or just kind of lazily drafted text. But anyway, this one's now back in review state, and I once again have access to the request changes and approve actions. So I invite you to sort of use your imagination about how this might work if you were doing 100 or 500 or 1,000 objects all at once, so from this page, I might select all the objects in a given batch and then move them through the process together. That's the sort of workflow that we're hoping to deliver in the next sprint. But you can sort of see it, you can sort of see the beginnings of it in this individual object process. Does that answer your question, Gabriella? Probably more thoroughly than is necessary.
No, it's great. It's just that I had never paid attention to those labels before.
Yeah. So these are triggered from the workflow states that are configured.
Okay, great.
I think this is one more place where collection adding can happen, and I'm actually really pleased to see that that works. I think that might be a new fix since yesterday. So there you go. That's sort of the collection and workflow work that we got done. We showed editing metadata. Yeah, so one thing that we're hoping to clean up in the next sprint is that Hyrax by default has two different collection views, one for the public and this one, which is more the dashboard. And originally, I think this was sort of conceived as an administrative dashboard, but it sort of became everybody's dashboard at some point along the way. So this is a view that's targeted at maintaining this collection. And we think what we're going to do is just remove this link and sort of retarget the whole public collection to point here instead, because we don't see much value in fixing the issues that are leading that public collection view to not work. We think that the actual public collection views for each of our campuses will not be served out by Comet. That's a different application or a different service. I think I have one more thing to show. Oh yeah, I think it's here that adding a collection to a collection doesn't work. But were we, Gabriella, we said we were able to add a collection to an existing collection, and now I'm second guessing that again. Is that?
I think you did it in through a different process, and that's why maybe we didn't catch that at this view, this level, it's not working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to put together a ticket?
Yeah, let's reconsider the closed status of number 791, because I think that one's not. I think maybe we dragged the wrong one to closed, or at least we have sort of peripheral tickets to look at. But I think, successfully. Oh, that button also doesn't work. That's nice. I think, at least add and remove objects, and notably, objects can belong to any number of collections. There's actually some pretty sophisticated collection configuration where you can have different collection types that behave different ways. I think that the ways that we'll actually use that are probably fairly small to start with, just because so you can see if I go to create a new collection, then it does ask me whether I'm creating a user collection or an admin set, which elsewhere in the UI are called projects. And those behave differently in that, notably in that each object can only belong to and must belong to exactly one project. So there's only one project set up in this app, but can belong to any number of collections. And there's the underlying framework has a lot of flexibility about how those kinds of rules are set up. But again, I think our basic usage right now is just going to be a single type of collection that has completely unstructured membership rules, and then the projects, which again are every object needs to be in one. The projects determine what workflow applies to the object, and who has access to move the object through that workflow process.
So Tom, just a clarify question back, you were showing your collection was a user collection versus the admin. The assumption is that you will never be able to move something that's a user collection to the admin set, change it. This is only an option when you're creating the collection?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a collection is going to be of one type, and it doesn't change types. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I think the best way to change a collection type would probably be to just migrate all the objects into a new collection and then delete the old collection.
Okay.
Collections under this thinking are pretty. The app doesn't have a lot of opinions about what they mean. So collections could be could have some kind of curatorial value, or they could just be like somebody's photo album. That's sort of the level of scope that the app thinks of them as. So what that means is that for our administrative dashboard, what the collection means exactly is sort of up to the individual campus to think about. And And you can, again, have different types. So if you want one type of collection to mean like this is a important curatorial grouping, and another type of collection to mean these things all want to show up in a given spotlight exhibit, then you could sort of arrange things that way. Right, like from Comet's perspective, these are groupings of objects that have metadata of their own, and much of what else they might mean is configurable, or what behavior is triggered from them is broadly configurable. So that, I think that mostly just means that for Gabriella, for our purposes, we have a lot of choices about how to deploy them. Okay, that was kind of a big random aside. But I think that that's the demo that we have. I guess, Gabriella, do you want to talk just briefly about the feature list before, because that's another ticket that moved across the board quite a bit this sprint, before I talk about what's up for next sprint?
Sure. I mean, I think that we've been meaning to share out the Comet feature list with our stakeholders, but it's always taken a back seat to this work. And I think it's gotten some movement in this sprint, if not the last, where it's almost complete, but I would like to have it vetted by our subject matter specialist experts, and have them just go through it before we share it out. But the hope is that I will be able to share it with both campuses to review, to comment by the end of this next sprint, which we're not really sure when it's going to happen, because we do have the UC Libraries Forum happening. We have Samvera Virtual Connect. So we hopefully maybe the first week in November I could share it out. But it's looking pretty good. I think it'd be really nice to get feedback from our stakeholders. Again, this was built out from the requirements that we received from both campuses for the Comet platform. And yeah, so hopefully it'll get wrapped up soon.
Great. Yeah, so that leaves us to talk about what's next. Like Gabriella mentioned, we do have just one sprint remaining in this work cycle, and that will close out the Comet work for this calendar year. We have our next work cycle scheduled to begin sometime in the winter. Like Gabriella mentioned, this sprint is sort of encumbered by the fall conference season. And I think a couple of us have presentations to give next week and the week after. And we've talked a little bit about the possibility of making the sprint a little bit elongated for that reason. But it will start tomorrow. We did sprint planning yesterday. And our goals for the sprint are to continue to iron out the details of the collection processes that you saw here. I think we're actually super close to closing out the whole collection process end to end, but you did see some sort of bumps in the road during this demo, and those are expected and things that we have substantially in flight. And then the much more critical focus at this point is to finish up this batch upload process. This is another place where a lot of work got done this sprint, but we didn't end up left with a lot new to demo. So you've seen this page before, but some answers for where we'll upload files to to stage them for ingest, and how the actual batch workflow process will happen. Some of those questions have been answered, at least to some extent, this sprint. And our goal is really to be able to demo for you by the end of the sprint a full batch workflow process, beginning at this page where I select a metadata manifest and attach files and add them to collections, and then be able to do that same workflow process that I showed you for the individual object, but for the whole batch. So our assumption is that a batch will be deposited to one project and have one workflow applied, and then you'll be able to move each object or move the objects in the batch through the workflow together in sort of lockstep. So if you wanted to review 50% of the objects or 20% of the objects or whatever, and then approve the batch as a whole on the basis of that, then you could adopt that kind of process, which again, I think is the process that both campuses are envisioning as their starting places. So that is our big push for this upcoming sprint, and I'm real hopeful about it. The end goal for the work cycle is very much to be able to deliver this into production, at least at UCSB, and start using this batch process to migrate content in the fall after. So between work cycles, I think we'll be working on campus at UCSB to do that ingest process, beginning with content from ADRL, and then we'll have a live system with live objects in it, and hopefully that will mean increased capacity for development on this project going forward. I think that's what I have planned. Did I forget anything?
I just don't know what the dog Gnocchi was going to demo, but that's why I stayed so long, because I thought Gnocchi was going to demo something.
I think that we should have Gnocchi do a demo of some of his tricks next time.
Stay tuned, folks.
Yeah, he'll do good tricks for you. Let's do that. Let's do a off-cycle Gnocchi demo. And pet show and tell. Other people can find fun things to demo.
No, good demo though, Tom. Thank you. Thanks, team. It's looking good. It's looking stable.
Thanks all.
Thank y'all.